The Great Western Depot in Bristol at St Phillip's Marsh is located not far from the main station at Temple Meads, and it's the main depot that was rebuilt to maintain the then new Intercity 125 train sets. In 2016, celebrating a 40-year association with the iconic train that provided the backbone of services under British Rail and later with the private operator GWR. This open day, on Bank Holiday Monday the 2nd of May, especially celebrating 40 years of the Intercity 125. A range of exhibits promised with a real focus on the HSTs. And visitors weren't disappointed, with the site playing host to a range of modern and vintage rail traction. The highlight, undoubtedly, was the spectacular lineup of HST power cars from a number of operators across the country. Also making an appearance, the prototype power car and matching Mark III coaches on display and clearly showing the evolution process. Then, at 11:30, a special unveiling of a retro power car livery, much to the delight of the crowd. Back to the days of BR and the once familiar BR blue and yellow that all the power cars carried when delivered from new. And on the side of 43002, the name of the designer responsible for the shape of the HST, Sir Kenneth Grange. And on the far left, the man himself, the industrial designer responsible for designing many of the products that we've all used, from razors to cameras, pens to postboxes. But for rail enthusiasts, he'll always be the one responsible for taking the awkward shape of the prototype and transforming the design into the production series shape that captured the imagination of the whole country. The prototype 41001 is owned by the National Railway Museum, and having spent 3 decades as a static exhibit, it's been restored over a 3-year period by members of the 125 Group. In fact, Sir Kenneth Grange became the 125 Group's honorary president. St Phillip's Marsh has been looking after locomotives for the Western region since it was established as a steam locomotive shed back in 1910. The steam shed closed in the 1960s. Bristol Bath Road Shed primarily looked after the allocation of diesel locos, while St Phillip's Marsh opened as the Bristol base for the high-speed trains when they were introduced back in 1976. So, it was only fitting that it was here that the 40th anniversary was being celebrated, with a stunning array of power car front ends. The lineup was simply spectacular. They were sporting some of the main house colours of the familiar rail companies that operate the HSTs, and as the operators are spread across the country, it's not surprising that this was the first chance that so many power cars had been gathered together to show off the variety of liveries and those different house styles.
Why did it show it's dead then?
Also on display, vintage traction, the English Electric Class 50s, Enthusiasts' favourites that had been displaced by the arrival of the HST on the then Western region back in the 1970s and 80s. And the ever-reliable Class 37s, born again in a new guise, a new role, and a new striking livery. The Class 56s that were so familiar on Welsh coal traffic. Representing the hydraulic classes, the high mech, back from the transition days from steam to diesel. The Class 40, never over-familiar to the Western, but certainly not unheard of. The collection of locomotives demonstrating the sheer variety of early classes that were tasked with hauling trains after the days of steam. The peaks were regular visitors to Bristol on cross-country services between the Midlands and the West Country. And steam was represented by LMS number 46100 Royal Scot, having then only recently returned to mainline service after a major overhaul. The plaque on the wheel splasher recording that the loco toured the US and Canada back in 1933, travelling over 11,000 miles on foreign rails. For many, one of the highlights was the tantalising glimpse into the depot sheds. The depot's been given a major upgrade. Operated by Great Western, the site is responsible for the maintenance of many of the HSTs and their trailer cars that operate between London Paddington, Bristol and South Wales. There's a sizable allocation of diesel multiple units used on local services. The Class 150s have been on shed for a number of years. But cascaded down, the more modern-looking turbo units, Classes 165 and 166. The modern depot has inspection pits and jacks for lifting when bogie replacements are needed. And no modern depot would be complete without a wheel lathe for reprofiling wheel tyres, being demonstrated during the open day. Just outside the shed, the veritable Class 08 shunter, both seen here looking immaculate for the visitors. Nearby, and almost hidden, a few reminders of coaching stock that we once took so for granted, the old Mark 1s and Mark 2s. It seems like only yesterday you could catch these out of Paddington. And showing the styling progress across the decades, the familiar face of the old faithful Class 31s. Again, a regular traction provider across the decades on the Western region, and alongside the more modern and surely less stylish North American offering in the shape of a Class 66. And where would we be without the most numerous class of all the mainline diesels, Class 47 749, renamed at the event back to its original 1965 name, City of Truro, in the freight company Colas house colours. The Class 47 re-engineered and reborn, GWR's 57603 Tintagel Castle, now responsible for hauling the overnight sleeper services between London and Cornwall. And so, back to the spectacular lineup of HST power cars, and what must be one of the most stunning liveries ever on a power car, number 43172 Harry Patch. The HST, named by Great Western, Harry Patch, after the last survivor of the trenches, the longest surviving soldier of the Great Wall. The afternoon weather deteriorated, but it certainly didn't dampen the spirits of the many enthusiasts keen to climb into the cabs of as many power cars as they could. And so back to the star of the event, 43002. The crowds have dispersed and a closer view of the retro livery applied in vinyl. It takes us right back to the 1970s and the time when these trains transformed the fortunes of British Rail by enticing travellers out of their cars and back onto the railways. It was late in 1975 when number 43002 rolled off the production line at Crewe, a run that would see over 197 power cars built over a 7-year period. Many will know the story of how Kenneth Grange was tasked with designing the new colour scheme for the modern trains, but he decided, under his own impetus, to redesign what he thought to be a rather brutal and clumsy design on the prototype. Although the brief was nothing to do with the shape, he presented the new design to British Rail and persuaded them to adopt it. His now iconic design meant the streamlined front end lacked conventional buffers and the draw gear was hidden under a cowling. The single cab front window was much larger than the prototypes, as the unions were insistent that there should be 2 drivers for such a fast train, and side windows were also included. It led to one of the most striking and memorable designs on the railways. Fitting then that his name now adorns the side of 43002. Also fitting that at the open day, the spectacular lineup of power cars caught the attention of enthusiasts. Since those BR days, the railways have undergone a complete transformation, and as a result of privatisation, the colours on these veterans are wide-ranging and varied, and everyone has their favourite, and all look striking. Across the years, the HSTs have also had a change of voice, thanks to several engines used to power them. The once screaming Valentas, the original power source, having now given way to more energy and emission-efficient units, but the sound close up is still impressive. This particular East Midlands train's power car named after a former British Rail chief engineer of traction and rolling stock. And so 2016, the 40th year of the HST and the open day at St Phillip's Marsh, marks the start of the end. With electrification and new replacement trains on the way, the heyday of the HST is passing. And a new chapter for traction on the Great Western is about to be written. But what a day, and what a great way to mark the occasion and celebrate the world's fastest diesel train.